Which doll is the pretty doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? And which doll is the bad doll? And why is that doll pretty?
Because he's white and he has 2 eyes.
Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
Which doll looks most like you?
Like me?
Yeah, which one looks like you?
And that one.
Okay.
That doll.
If you told me that toys I bought my kids for Christmas or their birthday would have an impact, a huge impact on Supreme Court ruling, I would have told you, you gotta be lying, you're lying. Supreme Court don't give a damn about toys I bought for my kids, a doll I bought from Amazon or Target or Walmart. They don't care. If you told me that a doll I bought my daughter would have a huge effect on integrating schools, allowing black kids to go to schools, I told you you're absolutely right. Nobody cares about what doll I bought my daughter for Christmas or for her birthday. I would tell you you're absolutely wrong. No possible way. No way. No. I don't believe you. But I'll be wrong. And to prove your case, all you had to do was point out the doll test. A test that was created, a psychological test that was created by Dr. Kenneth Clark and Dr. Mamie Clark. A married couple who created this test where they took 2 black dolls, 2 white dolls, and sat in front of a few kids, black and white kids, and asked them their results, their response to it. What did they think about the doll? All the black kids looked at the black doll as being mean, ugly. All the white kids said, hey, I can relate to the white doll. Looks like me. Black kids even felt that the black doll made them seem more, the white doll was more inferior. At the end of the day, the test proved one thing, that because of segregation in schools, the doll test proved that segregation led to kids feeling that white dolls or white people was more inferior than black kids, lowering their self-esteem, having a huge impact on their self-esteem. How did you find out so much by a doll? By sitting there parading a black doll in front of a kid, and a black kid actually looking at the doll as being ugly, being bad, being mean. White kids feeling the same way. You got to ask yourself, where does that truly come from? Where did a kid create that? How did that idea come in a kid, a child, an innocent child's subconscious, where they look at an actual doll and see a black doll as mean, ugly, not intelligent? When they see all the ugliness of the world in a black doll, but see a white doll, see purity, beauty, intelligence, inferiority. How is it that? But I got questions about the doll test. Is the doll test actually true? In proving that because of segregated schools, that kids of African American descent feel that white kids are more superior than them? That they're more superior than them? That they're smarter than them? That they are higher class people than them? Is that true? Did the doll test actually prove the point? Was segregation truly causing our children to have lower self-esteem? Here's my opinion. With all due respect to Dr. Kenneth Clark, Dr. Mamie Clark, in their research, I disagree. I clearly disagree. And I'm going to get more into segregation in a moment, but let's start with the lower self-esteem and the idea of how kids psychologically look at these dolls and conclude that a black doll is ugly, is less superior, is mean. And where did that idea come from? First of all, you got to look at what time period we're looking at. 1940s, 1950s, what was going on? The height of the civil rights movement, the height of racism in America, the height of segregation. White bathrooms, black bathrooms. White work fountains, black bathrooms. separate colleges, separate education, separate books. You couldn't go into libraries. Racism was at all-time high at this point in time. The only time I can say it was even higher was during slavery. I don't even know if you call that racism. Point is that during this time, racism was not only taught in the community, but was taught in our own household. A lot of times what we don't talk about is that racism is taught in our own house. And I'm not just talking about in the white community's house where white parents are teaching their kids about racism and how they should feel that they're more inferior than black kids and how they should hate black kids, how black kids are mean or they're the devil or they're the worst possible people on the earth or they're not intelligent. But it's also taught in the black home. We teach our own kids racism, not towards just white people, Asian people, Latino people, but most importantly towards ourselves. And even back then in 1950s and 1940, we still did not then and do not now embrace our power, our beauty, our blackness. We don't. And a lot of times, and I'm sad to say this, even today, we teach our kids to hate the color of their skin, hate who they are, to look at white people like they're more inferior than us, they're more superior than us. Look at them, that they're the gold standard, that what we should strive like is them. We should strive for their approval. We should strive for their stamp of approval. We should strive to be like them. We should live like them. We should wear our hair like them. We should dress like them. That's the class of people who rule the world. Why teaching our children the negative and the hate of our own selves? How we should fear the police department. How we should fear society and how we should react, not to compare ourselves into society to act as if we belong, but to adjust to society so that we don't offend or make anyone feel scared or uncomfortable. That's what we teach our children. Let me explain deeper what I mean by making sure people don't feel uncomfortable. We teach our black kids how to walk down a hallway or act around certain Caucasian or white women or white men, act or wear your hair a certain way, dress a certain way, speak a certain way. We teach them how to act because they're fearful of their blackness might look at them as a threat. So we teach them more of how to adjust to make other people feel comfortable rather than making ourselves feel comfortable. We don't teach our children about true black history. And let's rephrase that. African American history, not African history, African American history, because you call it Black History Month and all that. Truthfully, it's African American history. And the importance of saying that is because we're not teaching about African history, because according to most scholars in society, African history has been wiped out and there's no remnants of it, which is not true. But anyway, back to the point, because I digress. We don't teach our kids in our home about African American history, and we damn sure don't teach them about it in school system. We don't teach our children about African American history. So therefore, when we teach our kids, we're talking about Martin Luther King, I Had Dream speech, and when you go to school, that's the whole Black History Month. It's Martin Luther King, I Had Dream speech. My kids brought something home, my son brought something home for Black History Month, and it was a pamphlet about Beyonce. And not that there's anything wrong, Beyonce is the highest grossing black performer in America right now. She's an incredible woman. Her husband's an incredible man, do great work. She should be exemplified in Black history. She should be taught about because what she did is nothing less than extraordinary, no matter how you want to slice it. But the point is, there's so much more that was done in our history, so much more that we've done that can be taught about. Malcolm X is not talked about in school. Why? Because you felt that he talked about fighting back against police and white people who was trying to water hoses and dogs on women and children. He talked back about standing up for ourselves when we sit at a lunch counter and all we wanted to eat and was spit and beat on. So we don't teach about Malcolm X. Why? Because he spoke about something in a more way that made you feel uncomfortable. We don't talk about Frederick Douglass. We don't talk about Marcus Garvey and all that he contributed to the world. How he tried to create a black cruise liner. How he was trying to create a black cruise liner, an enterprise that would change the landscape and the history and the future for black people. We don't talk about Marcus Garvey. We don't teach about those things in school. We don't teach about how we fought back, about the Nat Turners who fought back and rebelled against slavery. You talk about slave movies and you do 12 years of slavery and all these slave movies and the Butler and all this stuff, talking about how the black women were raped, how the men stood around and let it happen, but we don't teach about Nat Turner and how he fought back. We don't talk about that in schools, and we damn sure don't talk about it in our home. We don't teach our kids about Dr. Du Bois. We don't teach our kids about the escaping my mind right now. Let me get back to it. Right now, it's escaping my mind. It's like right on the tip of my tongue, and it's gonna come back to me. The Tuskegee. We don't talk about the Tuskegee school. We don't even teach about the Tuskegee experiment. We don't teach our kids about Black history. And when we do, we parade slave movies in front of them. We parade Dr. Martin Luther King in front of them. And when we parade Dr. Martin Luther King in front of them and not saying anything bad about Dr. Martin Luther King, all we talk about is I Had Dreams speech. We don't talk about the poor man's march. We don't talk about what he was trying to do as far as fight back against poverty, not in just the Black community, but the white community. Pointing out the fact that Black and white people we don't have anything else in common with the fact that we both bleed the same, that we eat the same, breathe, and use the bathroom the same. If nothing else we have in common that we have poor Black communities and poor and disenfranchised white communities. But we don't teach about that. We don't teach about that. We don't teach our children about Rosa Parks, the true mother of the civil rights movement. We don't teach about how the bus boycott truly brought on change. The fact of the matter is now you can sit on any seat you want on the bus. We talk about separation. We teach about separation amongst ourselves. I hear elders right now teach about separation amongst ourselves, how we can't come together, how we can't work together. But how is it that we concluded and won in the boycott of the bus system? How? Because we came together. We had Uber before there was Uber. We created taxis before there was taxis, but you don't talk about that in Black History Month. What I mean that we created Uber because during the bus boycott, what did we do? We looked out for thy neighbors. With those Black people in the community that had cars, we helped other Black people in the community, instead of having to use the bus, we helped them get to work, helped them get to school. We band together and helped people so that they didn't need public transportation, causing huge strain on the public transportation. That the fact of the matter is, they then had to change the rules and how they informed and made us sit in the back of the bus or give up a seat for white patriots. We changed things. We change the landscape through our actions. But are you teaching your children about that? No. You teach your children that we're so separate. We can't come together. We can't get along because we disagree. Yes, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King had two different ideologies on how they wanted to see change in America. It didn't mean that they were separate. There's more than one way to peel an onion, to carve a pumpkin, to cook your food, to cut an apple, whatever analogy you want to use. There's more than one way. And sometimes a two-pronged attack is needed in the wars. And the civil rights movement was nothing less than a war. So when I talk about the dollar test, when I talk about Dr. Clark's work with the dollar test, what creates segregation, what doesn't get noticed, what didn't get recognized, what didn't get thought about, because a lot of times when we do things, we don't think about the long-term effects and the dangers of doing things. Yes, it had an effect on Brown versus Board of Education. Yes, it helped. The dollar test did help change the landscape. It helped integrate school systems. But we didn't think about what was happening when we was going to integrate these schools, when we were going to have kids bust out their neighborhoods and go to these now integrated schools. We didn't think about these kids are now being taught by teachers who don't understand their culture, don't understand their background, can't relate to these kids, don't understand what these kids go through not only at home, but in their community. They don't understand them. You didn't think about how integrating was going to change not only the landscape of how our kids learn, but the true self-esteem of our kids, because now the standardized testing come in. It's one of the biggest effects on our children's not only lives in school and their education, but their self-esteem when they go outside school, because they're being condemned by standardized tests, can't keep up with these higher test scores of Asian or Caucasian Americans, because most people deem these tests are culturally biased, and truthfully, don't have no bearings on the real world, because the real world, yes, you're going to be tested, but no job is going to sit here and put a standardized test in front of you and ask you to take a job, to earn an income. So the reality of the situation, the Dow test and its research didn't really prove much of anything, because it didn't highlight the fact that the issues that we have as Black people and the issues that the Black kids and Black young babies who was looking at these doll babies, the issue that they had with seeing themselves as ugly had more to do with how they're taught in their homes. with the things they see in their community, with the things that they're hearing around their house about their skin color, about if you're darker that you are mean, that if you're lighter skinned that you want to be white, or you're fair skinned that you know you're more beautiful, or if you have a certain type of hair texture. Yes, it's all taught in the house and the community. So it's not surprised that this was the mindset. But you say, oh, it's integrated, it's segregated schools that's causing this mindset. No, it's what you're seeing in the society. It's what these kids are seeing in the household. And the truth of the matter is, despite schools being integrated, these kids are still dealing with the same self-esteem issues, and I would even argue worse, because they're in schools, like I said, with teachers that don't look like them. You go around your school, look at your school system right now, people. I don't care where you are. Where are you looking? You're listening to this at. Think back to the last time you went to a parent-teacher conference, a PTA meeting, that you actually went to drop or pick your kids off at school, and show me what's dominant in the public school system that you see. What race is dominant in teaching your kids? Caucasian. Not only Caucasian, but Caucasian women. So that means the black kids, black men, or black little boys are getting double bubble on this. What I mean by double bubble on this is, first of all, they're not meeting men that can have an impact, a positive impact of intellect, of success on their lives, but they're also dealing with a woman who doesn't understand them as such. A lot of teachers don't come from poor, disenfranchised communities. Don't come from a community where you're worried about what you're going to eat, or where you're going to sleep, or where your next meal going to come from, or where your parents. They don't got to deal with violence that these kids have to deal with in their neighborhoods. So they don't understand why these kids are coming to school and they're angry and they're hungry and they can't focus, they can't concentrate. And immediately what's assumed is because they're African American or they're black, that they just don't care about school, that they got bad parents. They got bad parents and don't understand that because they live in a disenfranchised or poor community, that some parents have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, just to pay bills, just to put clothes on their back, shoes on their kids' feet. And if this has an effect on their children's life because they don't have a parent in the household to teach them at the most critical age of their lives, the most important products of who they are. It's because they don't have a huge influence on positivity, and not just positivity, but success. And then they don't learn about black history, and about the importance of the greatness of what black people did in home. Then they go to school, and for 28 days, out of 1 month, out of 12 months in a year, they get taught about I Had Dreams. And I'm going to give you black history in less than 30 seconds. Here's black history. Martin Luther King had a dream. Rosa Parks sat on the bus. Done. Told you. They're less than 30 seconds. There you go. Black history taught in the public school system in less than 30 seconds. Just taught you all about black history in less than 30 seconds. And you notice, like I said, we didn't talk about the poor man's march. We didn't talk about the bus boycott. We just said Rosa Parks sat down. We didn't talk about the Tuskegee School that was built for black kids. We didn't talk about Malcolm X and his impact. We didn't talk about Marcus Garvey, and we can go on and on. We didn't talk about Frederick Douglass. We didn't talk about so many other black historians and black people. We didn't talk about Harriet Tubman and how she freed slaves. We didn't talk about Nat Turner and how he rebelled against slavery. We ain't talking about none of that because, see, if we talk about that now, we have to go into a deeper conversation and have to understand why we don't want to talk about that. The superiority that exists in a lot of our subconscious is created by not only white and Caucasian people, whether it's taught in school or in society, but a lot of times when we're teaching our own very household and backyard, we refuse to talk about these subjects. White teachers and education systems refuse to talk about it because it's uncomfortable conversation. They don't want to talk about the uncomfortable conversation, the unsavory conversation of slavery. They don't want to talk about the civil rights movement any deeper than I Had Dream speech, because if you talk about it any deeper, you got to talk about people being sitting at lunch counters getting spit on, beat on because they want to eat. You have to talk about cops and white mobs sicking dogs on women and children, unarmed men, turning water hoses on them. You have to talk about how the burning and the bombing of a church in Birmingham. You got to talk about a bombing of a church that killed, 3 or 4 little girls? Little girls. Innocent little black girls were bombed in a church in Birmingham because of what? Of hate. We got to talk about the uncomfortable things that happen in this country. See, it's easy for us to point out the atrocities in other countries, in other societies, and all that happened, but we don't want to talk about what happened in our own. We don't want to talk about the fact that in a lot of us in the community, including the sports world, sports announcers, sports critics, and in that analysis, or analysts, if you couldn't get the word out, analysts didn't really appreciate or recognize Muhammad Ali, word tripping up, Muhammad Ali until he started getting the shakes and he actually went and carried the Olympic torch. You didn't really recognize Muhammad Ali like the greatest. You didn't look at him in such high regard when he refused to fight in the Vietnam War. You criticized him for his stance. You called him a draft dodger. You didn't recognize him when he changed his name from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. Come on, Malcolm X. I don't know why Malcolm X is so heavy on my mind right now. But you criticized him when he changed his name from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. Now you look at him in such high regards. Now you look at him as one of the greatest boxers in the world, and then you didn't. And you wonder why the Dow test had the results in. I mean, don't take, I got a PhD, but don't take me to have a PhD in psychology or a doctorate to see why kids recognized and felt the way they did when you consider the time and society that they lived in, what they were taught in the household, where most parents were just trying to teach their kids how to survive in a society that hated them. And that's what they did. Most parents in this time period, I'm not sitting here trying to denigrate parents or sit here and criticize and chastise parents for how they taught their children during this time. I'm just keeping it real. This is what it was, people. But you have to understand, they were trying to teach their kids how to survive during a time where they were at their most danger, where racism was at its height, and it was practiced in the open, freely, because there was no consequences of doing things like that. There was no consequences if you hung this kid in a tree, or this woman or a man in a tree. There was no consequences to what happened to Emmett Till. There was no consequences to what happened to him. His mom was the bravest woman in the world at that time, to take the photos, to have an open casket to show the world what was done to his son, what was done to her son, because he allegedly whistled that white woman, which later found out that he didn't even do it. But even if he did, what led to what happened to Emmett Till is an atrocity. And the fact that the people who did that to him never was brought to justice. I mean, you want to talk about Black history, people? We got to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly about Black history. You want to talk about the Dow test and the effect it has on children's self-esteem? Let's talk about it, people. Let's truly talk about it. But it's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to make you squirmish. It's going to make you scream in your seat. It's going to mean that we as Black people have to stop being our own worst enemy. And I know we're not supposed to say that in public forums, and we're not supposed to say that here if white and other relate races. We're not supposed to talk about that we're our own worst enemies, because what we do is we sit here and beat each other down for the success we have. When you see a Black person having success, any level of success, immediately you say, oh, he has to be part of the Illuminati. He's a devil worshiper because he has success. He's an idol worshiper. He or she is an idol worshiper because he or she has success. Their success had to come at the hands of worshiping the devil, selling their soul, because that's the only way we can justify that they had success and I didn't. We don't stand for each other. We don't back up each other. And you keep passing on that mantra. You keep saying it because you want it to come true. When the reality is, if you need proof that we stood up for each other, that we stand up for each other, then look at the March on Selma. Look at the March on Washington. Look at the bus boycott and the fact that right now, if you got on a school bus, a city train, or a city transit bus, you can sit in any seat you want and you don't have to get up. Look at Uber and taxis right now, and it'll show you that the bus boycott obviously worked out. And the only way it worked out is because we stood together. Because we stood together in solidarity, and we proved that there's strength in numbers. So don't sit here and tell me us marching and standing together don't change things. Tell me the truth is that we're too busy with a crab in the barrel mentality and lying to ourselves, lying to our children, teaching our children to hate themselves, teaching our children the underlying hate of racism, teaching our children about 12 years a slave, teaching our children about the I Had Dream speech, because we're too lazy to sit here and explain to our children the truth about Black history, the truth about what we have done and what we have accomplished throughout Black history. That there's nothing to be afraid of. You shouldn't be in fear of anybody or feel like anybody's more superior than you based on your race, because truth matters. Superiority lives inside you and your work, and what you already do, and how you see yourself. That you should see yourself as beautiful no matter what color your skin. You're dark, light skin, white, Latino, Asian, no matter how your heritage you are, you should see your beauty. But the truth is, colorism still exists. We still divide ourselves, the Black community, on lines. We still have elders in our community who still are suffering from slave mentality, still slaving from segregated and Jim Crow laws, and still causing these things and spewing these things into our community. And the truth is, more than anything else, and this is going to be controversial, more than anything else, music is truly would help integrate Black and white communities. Music did. You criticize Diana Ross in the Supremes. You criticize Marvin Gaye. You criticize Berry Gordy and Motown because they're trying to, appease the white community? When really what they did was they integrated. They broke through the lines that Malcolm X had a difficult time doing. Martin Luther King had a difficult time doing. They broke through those lines because they showed you. We all like the same music. We all dance. We all get that same feeling. They pull and they touch that something that goes way beyond, deeper than the skin, the surface of our skin, deep inside our soul, inside our feelings. And they brought out emotion and a reaction that we couldn't control. No matter whether you was Black, white, Latino, you couldn't control the way that music made you feel, the way it made you dance, the way it lifted your mood. And before you knew it, you just couldn't help but hearing the tone of Diana Ross and Supreme, Smokey Robinson. You hear these Motown sounds, these people coming from Detroit. And it made you feel so good that you realize what separated you made you the same. Music truly integrated us, not the dial test, not Brown versus the Board of Education. Music. But as much as it integrated us, it couldn't change how we see us and how we teach our children to see themselves. How we teach our children to see a beauty in your dark skin. That you cannot look at a doll baby and see ugliness and accuse yourself and every dark-skinned person as being ugly, being stupid, as being mean because of color skin. Or every white person, or white doll that you see, you can't see that as like, yo, every white person that was pure and beautiful and light-hearted and kind, because it's not true. It's not true on either side of the spectrum. Evilness lives inside a person's heart, mind, and their spirit, and their actions, not in the color of their skin. And we gotta learn to teach our children just that. That beauty is within your heart, your spirit, and what you choose to do. Superiority is what's inside you. You don't need to get anybody's credibility or stamp of approval, just your own. You have to set standards of ceiling on yourself. Whether high or low, you have to set that standard, that ceiling on yourself. You have to live up to it. But we also have to stop sitting here blaming the school system for what they don't teach our children about Black history, and learn to spend time not just during the month of February, but year-round teaching our children the truth about Black History Month, teaching them the truth about Marcus Garvey and his work, the truth about Dr. Du Bois, the truth about Rosa Parks, the truth about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Frederick Douglass, and all the Harriet Tubman, and all the other Black heroes that we haven't spoken about today. All of them. Sit down and teach them the truth about what they've done, what they plan to do, and what work still needs to be carried on, and what we as Black people need to do. I want to thank you for joining me for another episode of Past to Present Podcast. Remember to like, comment, subscribe to my channel. Let me know your thoughts on the dial test in this episode. Continue to teach your kids about the importance of Black history all year round. Teach them the beauty of themselves, the superiority, the intelligence, the kindness, and love that they should feel about themselves despite their Black skin. I want to thank you. Remember to comment on this. And until next time I see you or talk to you people, I only got 3 things to say to you. Stay woke, stay focused. Most important, stay tuned.